Well, let's welcome to the show someone who, when he was a copper, actually specialised in manhunts, in hunting down wanted criminals. So he's very much the guy to talk to. He is, of course, our favourite former Met Police detective, Peter Bleksley. Morning, Peter.
Good morning.
Well, look, first of all, your overarching thoughts about what we've seen in 3 catastrophic days since Friday. I mean, this is a shambles on a whole new level. This is absolutely excruciating, humiliating, embarrassing, absolute, utter incompetence on the part of this prison. I don't think the coppers particularly distinguished themselves, trying to pat themselves on the back yesterday morning, say, oh, what a diligent search. They got a lucky phone call from 2 women who saw this guy waiting at a bus stop. And then Lammy says, I want to thank the police. Well, he should get sacked. I think this prison governor, Mark Howard, should get sacked. We need accountability on this. But first of all, Pete, your thoughts about what we've witnessed.
A friend of mine who lives in America contacted me yesterday and said, Peter, what is going on with your country? He said, over here, he said, you're a laughing stock. He said, you can't even keep your prisoners behind bars. And I said, no, it's deeply, deeply embarrassing. And so it goes. The reputation of this once great nation is being shredded around the globe through incompetency. And while I'm talking about incompetency, let me start my role of dishonour with regards to this pathetic saga. Lord Timpson, Prisons Minister, what's he been doing? David Lammy, Justice Minister, is it any surprise? Shabana Mahmood, Home Secretary, up until recently, the Justice Minister. They've all got this embarrassment all over their hands, and it truly is a disgrace. And to hear Lammy yesterday, as you rightly pointed out, heaping praise upon law enforcement. The public found him. The public called this in. The public put his time on the run to an end.
Yeah. Somebody called, a copper called James Conway, Commander James Conway, released a statement yesterday congratulating the police on a diligent operation, which has successfully resulted in the recapturing of this guy, Hadush Kabatu. Well, as I just said, Peter, and as you were alluding to, this was just a bit of luck on the coppers' part, that 2 ladies in Finsbury Park yesterday morning at 8:30 a.m. spotted this guy waiting at a bus stop. We've been looking at footage of him in Dalston High Street on Saturday morning in his prison tracksuit, carrying around his prison plastic bag. There he is, full of his possessions, his possessions. Where are the police here? I mean, these scenes alone shame the police. Don't start congratulating yourself on a magnificent operation. There is no congratulations to be handed out here, either on the part of the prison or the police or the politicians or anyone else. This is a shambles and an embarrassment from start to finish, right?
The only debt of thanks that needs to be paid here is to those diligent members of the public who picked up the phone. The police quite simply responded to a 999 call where somebody said, he's here, come and get him. It was about as a challenging police and policework as going to the post office and picking up a parcel.
Exactly right. Don't congratulate yourself. Absolutely ridiculous. Do you happen to know, so when they release a prisoner, if this guy was being released properly, surely he wouldn't still be wearing his prison-grade tracksuit, would he? So the fact that he's still in that tracksuit, why didn't the prison officers, who kept telling him to go away when he went back 5 times, apparently milled around outside Chelmsford Prison, completely confused about what was going on, went back 5 times to effectively say, are you sure about this? What's going on? And in the end, they kept shooing him away, and in the end, one of them angrily said, look, for God's sake, the station's just down the road, it's on the left, will you get the hell out of here? But my question to you, Peter, is if he was wearing his prison tracksuit, shouldn't that have raised alarms with the guards?
Yes, it should have done, although, just to clarify, what happens with short-term prisoners is they are often released in the clothes they were wearing when they were arrested. But of course, if that clothing has been seized for forensic examination and not returned, sometimes they do have to walk out of the gates in prison clothing. But often charities will try to provide them with clothing, because the last thing you really want is to walk out of a prison saying to the wider public, here I am, I've just been released. Although sometimes with carrying clear plastic bags or a prison issue holdall, for example, is a sign that people in the know will readily appreciate that person's just been released from prison.
Yeah, apparently, as is always the case in these circumstances, when someone's been a prisoner's being released, they give them 76 quid. But also apparently our friend Kabatu had a fair amount of money. And so that money, upon his release, was returned to him. So he wasn't financially struggling during these 3 days on the run. But the police didn't seem to do anything. It was your expertise, wasn't it, manhunts, looking for wanted prisoners. What should the coppers have done the moment they realised that this debacle had happened, that he'd been accidentally released? What should they have done to catch him earlier?
Well, first of all, here's a question that I don't know the answer to. Where did Kabatu get this money from? The money apart from the £76. Let's face it, he is an illegal immigrant. He came to this country in breach of Section 3 of the Immigration Act 1971, which makes him fundamentally, irrevocably, an illegal immigrant. So he couldn't work. So where did that cash come from, I wonder? Maybe that's a question somebody else can answer. But in regards to the manhunt, they knew he'd got on a train, so they will have picked up the CCTV thread from there. That was really their start point. And what you have between a fugitive and your team is an imaginary piece of string that you're forever trying to shorten as you get closer and closer to the fugitive. Of course, on Saturday night at about 8 p.m, when the police announced that they had CCTV footage from 8 p.m. on Friday, I was deeply concerned because that piece of string seemed to have lengthened to over 24 hours. So I wonder just how close they'd got to him. I wonder just how effective the manhunt had been, how many resources were deployed to it. Those questions still remain. They'll probably never be answered because as far as the establishment now, the police, the prison service, the Home Office are all concerned. It's case closed. He's now in handcuffs. All they've simply got to do is get him out of the country. But that, of course, begs another question, bearing on a very recent example. Will he return to the UK again? Will he have another go at getting on a dinghy and floating into the UK like so many thousands upon thousands of them are doing every year?
You see, another thing that worries me about this, and by the way, accountability, it's something that seems to have died a death in this country. The most appalling mistakes can be made, particularly in the public sector, time and time again. No one takes the blame, no one gets punished. Now, in this instance, I think we could break the mould and set a new pattern. Start making people pay for this humiliation, this embarrassment over the last 3 days. Sack the prison governor. I mean, I don't like calling for people to be sacked, but you know, this is important, this is serious. The prison governor, name of Mark Howard, surely he should be sacked. He can't be the buck has to stop somewhere. This is a guy running Chelmsford jail. It is quite clearly a shambles, an absolute mess. So sack him. Sack all the prison officers who were responsible for this, not just one. Who was it that kept telling him to leave? Who was it gave him directions to the station and told him to get the hell out of there? Sack them. Sack David Lammy, the minister in charge. Sack James Timpson, the prison minister. Make the public know that people are not allowed to commit this kind of incompetence, this catastrophic incompetence, and get away with it. We need to send a message here, don't we, Pete?
You and I are old enough to remember prime ministers like Ted Heath and Harold Wilson and Margaret Thatcher and the like. Now, of course, back in those days, when ministers had a catastrophic error for which they presided over, they would fall on their sword. There was some honour in politics back in the day, but that's all disappeared. So, along with so much else that has been pushed forward by the progressives. Now, I'm a bit reluctant to call for the sacking of what is probably a poorly recruited, badly trained, underpaid frontline worker in the prison service who may not even have English as their first language. That is the state of things in some of our prisons. But the prison governor has many, many questions to answer. But this chaotic shambles of a criminal justice system lies across the board, from the front end of policing, and we all know about the issues that policing is facing, through to the CPS, underfunded, understaffed, comes up with some dreadful decisions and is failing on many levels. Then we get to the prisons, well, the courts rather, and we all know that they've got a massive backlog. They've got leaking roofs, rubbish IT. Many courts are not sitting when they could. Then we go to the prisons, and then finally to the probation service, who are only effectively managing about a quarter of their workload. The entire criminal justice system is a shambles. And what does that mean to the likes of you and me and your audience? I'll tell you what it means. We are all a little less safe. There are more crooks out there, more criminals. There are people being released early from prison, people not being sentenced when they should do, and so it goes. It is a national disgrace.
It totally is. Talking of our criminal justice system, I wanted to get your take on this. The Metropolitan Police, your old force, is spending £5.2 million this year on woke diversity initiatives. They have 64 diversity staff working at the Met while they're busy laying off many, many coppers because they apparently can't afford them. They're losing jobs worth £250 million right now in the Met, but they're hanging on to their 64 diversity officers, and they have issued a diversity calendar containing 63 events, including International Pronouns Day, Be Kind to Humankind Week, National Tsunami Awareness Week, and so on and so forth. This operation is costing £5.2 million a year to basically maintain the Metropolitan Police's diversity calendar. Your thoughts, please?
Or, as I rather call it, their woke agenda. New Scotland Yard is the headquarters of the once world-renowned Metropolitan Police. I was fortunate enough in my time working for them to travel extensively, including to places like America. When I was greeted by the FBI once as I was going to their headquarters training, they said to me, "Peter, we're going to take you to watch the snowcap operatives training." Now, these were the people that were flying down to Colombia to disrupt the cocaine factories in the jungles. They said, "We think you'll learn a lot about cocaine factories, cocaine manufacture. You can take that back into your undercover work in England and in Europe, and we think that would be helpful." Of course it was. Can you imagine today if I was still a serving detective when I would be greeting FBI or other law enforcement operatives off of an aeroplane at Heathrow, and I could say to them, "Good morning. Today I'm going to take you to the Pansexual and Panromantic Awareness Day because I think it might help with you and your law enforcement when you get back to the States. If you don't fancy that, I could always take you to International Pronouns Day or maybe National Tsunami Awareness Week." What a joke. This is where the progressives get you. This is the fluffy, liberal takeover of the nation, the tentacles sown by Blair in 1997, that successive governments have failed to rip out and grab some common sense. This is what it's come to.
It sure as hell is, and it's not a good point to come to at all. Just before you go, Pete, great to have you on the show. Many thanks for joining me. Sadiq Khan, we learnt today that the Met Police, again your old force, is currently investigating potentially 9,000 historic sexual abuse cases against the victims of rape gangs, the alleged victims of rape gangs. 9,000. The mayor, Sadiq Khan, here he is, continues to act as if London, contrary to almost every other town and city in Britain, never has had, does not have any kind of rape gang problem whatsoever. When he was quizzed on it at the London Assembly a couple of weeks back, he acted like he'd never heard of the rape gang scandal. Sorry, I don't know what you mean. What do you mean? Do you mean county lines? No, we mean rape gangs. So when the mayor says, in effect, we have no rape gang problem in London, is he telling the truth? Does he just not know, or is he lying, or where are we at with this? What sort of position is he in by maintaining that there's no rape gang problem here in London?
In order to be repeatedly elected and re-elected as London mayor, the odious, pious and revolting Sir Sadiq Khan has had to rely on the block votes of either Muslim or otherwise black and brown faces, of which, of course, there are many in London, so many of whom contribute to this nation, but there's a number who don't. He's relied on their votes. And the reason he has obfuscated, the reason he has ducked the questions, in my opinion, is because he does not want to upset that block vote. Because, as has been shown in other towns, the length and breadth of the country, Rotherham, Rochdale, Oldham, Telford, the majority of these child rape gang offenders have been brown-faced Pakistani men. And Khan is afraid of upsetting his block vote. He is like so many politicians. They put votes before victims. And for that, I heap absolute shame upon the lot of them.
We're going to talk about the digital ID scheme now, the digital ID card that Keir Starmer is so keen on because Tony Blair told him to be keen on it. Lord Ashcroft, who is also a top pollster, he wrote a piece in the Mail. I was struck by the headline. It pretty much sums it up. He said, this ID card scheme is classic Starmer. It's expensive, intrusive and utterly pointless. What does it do that we don't already have? And why are they saying, well, you'll need this to use the NHS, doctors, social services, you know, the police will no doubt want you to show it. Well, why? We don't need it. We've got our passports for identification. We've got national insurance numbers for employment. We don't actually need this. This is just a socialist government that wants to keep control over the peasants, as in us. Let's talk to Alan Miller, co-founder of the Together Declaration. Morning, Alan. Before we talk, bear with us, if you will. Let's have a listen to Keir Starmer waxing lyrical about his wonderful digital ID card scheme.
So I'm in Brighton today. This is Barclays Bank, and I've been talking to customers about digital ID, and they're really enthusiastic. It'll have your basic information on it. For everything other than proving you've got a right to work, it won't be mandatory. You don't have to have it, but you can have it. You can use it for anything that requires identification, and there are lots of things. If you want to rent, for example, if you want to apply for a mortgage, if you want to get your child into primary school, there's a catchment area, and you've got to show where you live, proving who you are, what your date of birth is, will just be able to be done with digital ID. They're really up for it, and I think once you understand just how much easier it'll make life, so many more people will be too.
Well, Alan, there he is saying, it's totally voluntary, you don't really need it. And then he runs through all these things, getting a mortgage, going to a bank account, using social services, the NHS, the doctors. In other words, what he said, you don't really need it, he said voluntary. And then he basically reels off all the reasons why, unless you have this card, you won't be able to function in this country. He's going to make it absolutely compulsory. And as Lord Ashcroft says, we don't need it. Do we? Well, there's no reason for this card at all, except for a socialist government that classically Soviet style wants to keep tabs on the peasants, as in us, right?
Yeah, good morning, Kevin. I mean, I think it's absolutely the case that it's not needed a centralised database surveying biometrics state. It's interesting that he says it's utterly pointless, Lord Ashcroft, because actually there is a point to it, which is precisely those things, precisely the ability to track and survey and snoop and spy and limit and censor. And we only have to look at what's been going on in the last 5 years to see them doing that already. It's not like even the prospect of those things, everything from two-tier policing to being put in prison for some social media posts, not others, from the debanking scandal based on particular views, right through to data breaches and all of the concerns around that. He's also gone even further, Kevin. It's like that abuser that says, well, you better get rid of, you don't have to do it, but this is what we're going to do to you. It's my way or the highway, saying it's going to cost you £85 each time you have to do something, but you know, it's up to you. Threats, nudges, coercion, but yet this government doesn't have any solutions to the very real problems people are facing on a daily basis. The questions around the economy, 30,000 businesses gone down under his tenure, the fact that the issues with our borders, the question around how we organise our health, we're now being told even more taxes, and by the way, it's not going to be able to be paid for. We have to discuss all these issues, how to get a thriving, dynamic economy, but they're bereft of ideas, and instead, alongside the Tony Blair Institute, they present this silver bullet. The problem is, Kevin, even though people are talking about the digital ID cards, which is really essential, the BRIC card, as Labour Together call it, they've been pushing for some time the one login system. And the one login system is the verification that they've been getting people onto. And that's the thing that's already had whistleblowers around it, and that the government UK digital wallet sits on top of. And we're very concerned. And that's why our campaign has been saying, like, around directors, no to forcing 8 million directors onto this. We've got an open letter and a petition. And the same with veterans, no to using veterans as guinea pigs or our kids for the children wellbeing school bill. And that we push back together, that we get everyone in the public, your viewers, your listeners, to say, we don't want this, we don't need this. And to say we're not going to have it, right? And to let our councillors and our MPs know there's May elections, and say, you know, depending on what your position is on digital ID will be our vote, and really have a kind of tsunami reaction and response, because they're not going to be able to ignore us if we say we're not doing it. We've got toolkits about how to challenge this for directors, and to have a real big pushback, because the alternative is one where these technocrats who don't have any solutions for us are constantly surveying and nudging and pushing us, and we have to have some kind of verification to participate in British life. And our forefathers fought against any of that, so did our veterans, and it's unacceptable.
Yeah, that's it. There's no excuse for this that makes any sense. There's nothing this card will achieve for us that we can't achieve right now without it. There is no reason for it except for a government that wants to keep tabs on us. They say, well, you can't get a job without it, you know, from now on. Well, what way is that different to the fact you can't get a job right now unless you've got a national insurance number? You know, oh, you can't get a bank account now without it. Well, or a mortgage. Well, in what way is that different to what we have to do now? Give in our passports, give in identification. Nothing about this makes any logical sense. There is no reason for it apart from I think, a socialist government that wants to keep tabs on us. It's all about control, and you know what it's going to lead to. They talk about mortgages, bank accounts, using the NHS, doctors, so on, and social services. You're going to need it for all of that. And here's the other thing you're going to need it for, Alan. It's going to be, from now on, if we get these damn things, and for God's sake, let's keep resisting it, but if we get them, the first thing a copper will say to you when he pulls you up is, show us your paper, show me your papers, you know, your papers, please. It'll turn this country, it's an assault on traditional British freedom. It's not British. We don't want to be a papers, please dystopia. It's going to be, show me your papers, please. There seems to be some sort of discrepancy. Come with me, please. That's what we're talking about, and we don't want that, do we?
Well, exactly right. I mean, it's always dressed up in terms of safety and convenience, keeping you safe, keeping children safe, keeping the borders safe, or it's all just really convenient. Don't get the bill out of the drawer, and don't get that pesky passport. Here's a very convenient, easy way. And, you know, everything from verification to logging onto the internet and around the Online Safety Act and those questions, to all of these points, you know, around benefits, around childcare, around pensions, taxation. We know that the Department of Work and Pensions already created in a situation where they can go in to our bank accounts, civil servants, unelected, snooping, taking money out. Liz Kendall was overseeing that. The whole idea that you have to prove who you are to participate in British society is unacceptable. And that's why we really encourage people to come to togetherdeclaration.org to get involved. We've got rallies around the country, we've got events around the country, we're flyering, we're talking to councillors and MPs. We want the public to push back together on this and to give a resounding no to this. And we've also got a digital bill of rights that says we must have the option to not participate in this, to opt out of anything, and that we ring fence protections, like we have warrants to go into people's houses or to look at their mail, in the same way that we have protections in the digital arena, but no to a centralised biometric surveillance state. Anyone who's concerned, just look back at the last few years. And we can do this, right? In Britain, we can shine a light internationally. We've got a very unique situation here. And so what we do, what your listeners and viewers do, Kevin, will really count.
Well, our listeners, I think our audience are with me on this, and you. This isn't British. It doesn't achieve anything. We don't need it. This is for the government. It's not for us. And we're not falling for any of this nonsense about, oh, it'll make life so much more convenient. It won't. Well, I can hardly believe it. She's in the studio. I usually talk to her over on the West Coast. So warm welcome to the great Kinsey Schofield, our royal guru. How are you doing, Kins?
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you. A wild few weeks of royal news.
Wow, it just gets... more and more dramatic, doesn't it? Should we kick off with, I suppose, we want to get onto Andrew and Fergie in just a minute, but our friend Meghan yesterday released a Halloween video of pumpkins, her and Harry carving them, and this business of taking pictures of the back of their children's head.
Nothing is spookier than faceless children.
It's getting weird. It's getting weird. Anyway, have a look at the video.
All the leaves are brown, and the sky is grey, and the sky is grey. I've been for a walk on a winter's day.
This is such a natural thing. I mean, they spent hours producing that, didn't they? Okay, so that's a Halloween thing for the kids and all that. Pumpkins, Harry carving the pumpkin, Meghan, kids running around. But as I say, I mean, no doubt she's got something to sell. So later today she'll say, I've got a new range of wine available or something like that.
Wait, no, what's the date? Because she told us to save the date for Tuesday, October 28th. So obviously,
that's tomorrow, right?
This is a deep tease. This is the deep tease. Yeah, she's trying to garner some attention, so all eyeballs are on her for whatever the October 28th drop will be that will unimpress us as much as the slimy jam.
Yeah. So, but So yeah, this is a prelude to something she wants to sell you tomorrow. Always uses the kids to flog stuff.
For sure, but how much of it is also we're not Prince Andrew? How much of it is also them trying to distance themselves? Look, we're having so much fun. We're wholesome. We're doing children activities. We've drugged Doria out of the basement. Look, Doria's here. The kids are here. They might be trying to distract from the Prince Andrew scandal because, you know, there's something so ironic to me. Sorry to go to my soapbox here, but for Harry to say that he's just trying to hold his family accountable with the book Spare, where he completely glosses over the Prince Andrew scandal, for Meghan to say a feminist and not stand up for sex trafficking of underage women, you know, you're not trying to hold anybody accountable. You only speak up when it directly affects your wife or your children. You know, he tries to say he's out there slaying dragons for the greater good. Then step up and say something about your uncle, who is, you know, a total stain on you and your family.
Yeah, well, I think that Harry, every day and every way, gets down on his knees and thanks God for the existence of his wicked uncle Andrew, because as long as Andrew's in the frame, people aren't concentrating on wicked Harry, who's whose nefarious behaviour isn't quite in the league of his awful uncle, but it's pretty bad anyway. So while we focus on the dreadfulness of Prince Andrew and the dreadfulness of Fergie, we kind of forget that there's this guy who's supposed to be the king's son over in California, who spent the last 5 years lobbing verbal hand grenades over the Atlantic at his dad, his family, calling them all racist, calling the entire nation slave drivers, and so on and so forth. So
and don't forget getting involved in U.S. politics that are none of his business. As somebody that insists on using his continuing to use his title, signing that paperwork about wanting to control superintelligence, artificial intelligence last week. Sit down. You're not even a citizen of the United States. Why should you have any say over what our laws are in the States when it comes to artificial intelligence? I think he's just jealous because he has no intelligence whatsoever. So, you know, super intelligence really intimidates him.
Artificial or real, anything. Harry doesn't have any intelligence, a bit like his uncle Andrew. They're the two Dumbos of the royal family. And there are tremendous similarities insofar as both of them, Andrew and Harry, desperately trying to make money out of their royal title, something that Her late great Majesty Queen Elizabeth II would hated and despised, something the King doesn't like, but they're doing it. Harry's out there trying to make money out of being the Duke of Sussex, which he won't be after King William comes along. When William ascends to the throne, he'll get rid of Harry's titles, and he'll certainly get rid of Andrew's titles if he's still got them. Because, of course, although he agreed to stop using them last week, Kinsey, officially he still has them. We have to have an act of Parliament to strip him of those titles. The people of Britain, more than 80%, want that act of Parliament to happen. The King doesn't. Well, he's going to have to get used to it. We tell him what to do in these circumstances, not the other way round. We're in charge, not the royal family. We pay for them, they do what we tell them. And we will be telling His Majesty that Act of Parliament to strip Andrew of his titles that he doesn't want, it's going to happen 100%. But today, Kinsey, your thoughts on this, the front page of the Sun, we showed it earlier, 2 pads, Andy. Outrageously, this man, this liar, and his lying wife, who basically clung on to a paedophile, didn't care he was a paedophile, but he had $1 billion, so that's why they clung on to him. They wanted his money. Fergie's said to have taken $2 million off Jeffrey Epstein over the years.
I feel like you're forgetting the most important part. Apparently, they both have a foot fetish, which is something we
I didn't want to go into those bits, but yes, indeed. Virginia Griffey chronicling what Andrew did to her on 3 continents. He denies it. No one believes him. She said he had a foot fetish and was very aggressive sexually. But so the King's been trying to get them. Everybody wants them out of the Royal Lodge, this 30-room mansion in the shadow of Windsor Castle. Looks like he's finally agreed that he might go, but in return, him and Fergie, because they both live there, are demanding 2 houses. Frogmore Cottage, that Harry and Meghan spent a couple of £1 million on, turning it into a beautiful place, and also Adelaide Cottage, where William and Kate currently live, but they're going to be moving to a much bigger place fairly soon. So in order to move out of this house, this huge place, Royal Lodge, used to be the Queen Mother's home, where he doesn't pay any rent, he's demanding 2 more houses. I just say it's time to tell this guy, you're on your own. You're on your own. You and Fergie, get out there, get a job or something. We're not giving you anything more, right?
Here's what my sources say. There is no negotiating with this guy. He has no terms. You can't negotiate. Like, it's my understanding, it's not if, it's when he moves out of Royal Lodge, as far as the powers that be, as far as they're concerned. So to hear that he would have the audacity to say, okay, I'll do it, but here's what I want in return, it doesn't surprise me based on some of the ways we've heard this man described in the past, the entitlement, the pure arrogance. But it's my understanding that he really doesn't have a leg to stand on. So whether he likes it or not, he's leaving Royal Lodge. And also, William's never going to go for this. With Prince Andrew in the Windsor vicinity, he becomes an incredible distraction for William's inevitable reign. He becomes, he remains a distraction for the British royal family. You know, he needs to go away, he needs to disappear. We don't need to see him on horseback. We don't need to see him anywhere near this family if the family wants to continue.
Yeah, a couple of points to make there. Apparently royal staff have been told don't give him any more horses to go on these strange little rides that he goes on around Windsor Great Park. But there's a story going around that his brother, the king, will still allow him to host shooting parties. Well, this is exactly what's got to stop. No more of this. No more privileges. Kick him out of Royal Lodge and tell him to make his own way in the world. We've had enough of him, haven't we? Yeah,
he's a distraction, and he is he's jeopardizing the future of the monarchy.
Yes, he is.
Jeopardizing Prince William's future, and the king should be considerate of that. Although I am within the party that believes that this is not just a king problem, that the Queen's team should have been much more aggressive in their handling of Andrew as well. Randy Andy.
Randy Andy, I remember the Randy Andy days. Keir Starmer and all that. Yeah, he's been an embarrassment his whole life, and now he is, you're right, I mean, it's serious. Unless the king gets tough with this guy, and indeed the royal family, and indeed the country, the very future of the monarchy is at risk. Something needs to be done, and something needs to be done very fast. We're hearing that William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, are hoping to move into their new home by bonfire night, November the 5th. And they want Andrew gone from Royal Lodge by then. I think there's a momentum, there's a direction of travel here, but I don't think we want this guy given 2 homes in return for giving up the current home that he's got, and we don't want him being able to host shooting parties. He shouldn't be given horses. He should be told, look, this is it, mate. You're not a royal anymore. Go and get a job. Simple as that.
A legal one, please.
Yeah, indeed. Well, let's talk to someone who knows all about this sort of thing. He's a former prison officer, and he's a host of the Real Porridge podcast, Sam Samsworth. Morning, Sam.
Well, how are you doing, mate?
I'm good. I learnt something yesterday from a former prison governor called Vanessa Frake. And she said that one of the problems at Chelmsford, and indeed other prisons, is this, that prison officers' staffing levels are so short, such a shortage that the gates, as it were, the people manning the doors and the gates of the prison, are not actually prison officers. They're kind of contracted people who specifically let people in and out. Therefore, those are the ones who are allowed Kabatu to leave the prison, and when he came back 4 or 5 times and he kept saying, excuse me, I'm not sure you were supposed to release me, in the end one of them said, oh, for God's sake, the station's up there on the left, will you just go? Although I do think that the people who let him out have to take some of the blame, it's surprising to me that the people manning the gates, the big locked gates of a prison, are not actually prison officers.
Okay. So firstly, operational support grades they are, yeah.
Yeah.
So the assist prison
Oh, hang on, we've lost the sound
officers, usually minimum prisoner contact.
there.
Have we lost you?
Yeah, no, you're back. Yeah, don't worry.
Are we back?
Yes, you are.
Right. So these people work in specific areas, so they will be trained in that area. The fact they're not prison officers, for me, is not the real problem. Successive governments for the last 25 years have reduced staffing levels and budgets in prisons that they've just become impossible to recruit.
Okay, yeah. What did you say these gate people are called? What's their job again?
OSGs, operational support grades.
Okay, so operational support grades. Okay, fair enough. Perhaps they are. But whoever let him out, it's their fault, isn't it? It's his fault or her fault.
I'm going to disagree with you.
Well, hang on. They're the ones who let him out. They're the ones who 5 times he came back, 5 times they said, get out of here, get to the station. It's their fault. It's that person's fault. I'm not saying it's not the prison governor's fault as well, or David Lammy, or the prison, but it's their fault. It's not. You cannot exonerate that person.
Them people will escort people to the gate and release them.
Well, they shouldn't have done, should they? He's a sex offender doing a year. Why did they do that?
Well, let me explain. So that person, is just the final part of the trail. There should be a paperwork trail. What I can't believe, quite honestly, with this guy is, do you recognise that guy?
What?
Would you recognise him?
Well, in his prison tracksuit, carrying a plastic bag full of his possessions.
I absolutely would recognise him. I can't believe that. Yeah. It does go way higher up. It's not the prison service. It might find it controversial, but they're strained that much now. Prison reception is an incredibly busy place to work.
Well, okay, hang on a second. Look, I get that, and I do understand there are staff shortages, and as I say, I think the buck needs to stop at the top. I think that prison governor, Mark Howard, needs the finger pointing at him. I think the prison minister, James Timpson, needs to answer a few questions. And I think David Lammy, the Justice Secretary, needs to be in the frame as well. But the people who actually let him go, it's their fault. They've got to be in the frame as well, right?
They can only work with what's presented in front of them.
No. They
Honestly, no, listen.
You said everybody could recognise him. They let him out.
I know they did.
So they made a mistake, didn't they, Sam?
No, they followed the paperwork.
They didn't make a mistake.
No.
They didn't make a mistake letting Hadush Kabatu out. I would suggest, Sam, with all due respect, they did make a mistake.
Okay, listen, just hear me out a minute. If that paperwork said he was due release, they're going to release him. That's it. So, for me...
Well, we don't know that the paperwork said that, do we?
Well, we don't without seeing it. I mean, obviously, they're looking at the release procedures.
Who did the paperwork? Who would have done the paperwork?
There'll be a big chain. There should be
what do you mean, big
to hold
chain?
Someone in prison.
Who made that decision? Who would have signed off his release?
The paperwork would say that.
Yeah, but who signed off the paper? Someone somewhere made an egregious mistake, and they've got to be blamed.
You would have to look at everybody, before someone's released.
No, I wouldn't.
Let me explain.
No, I wouldn't. I want to look at the person who signed off on releasing Hadush Kabatu. Don't blame the chain. Don't blame the system. Don't blame staff shortages. Let's get real. Someone somewhere made a terrible mistake and they need to be sacked, right?
Can Can I go
Yes,
again?
do they need to be sacked?
Firstly,
No, Sam, whoever signed off on this needs to be sacked, right?
I don't know.
What do you mean you
honestly
don't know? What do you mean you don't know? You mean that wasn't a mistake?
Yes, obviously it shouldn't have been
sack
released.
'em.
However,
Fire them.
somewhere in administration, from the courts, the paperwork, I can see that he should not have been released.
Yeah, I think that might be the case, Sam. I think perhaps he shouldn't have been released. Yeah, I think we can agree on that. Whoever is responsible for signing off on his release needs to be sacked. I'd also suggest that Mark Howard, the governor of Chelmsford Prison, needs to be sacked. Personally, I'd sack James Timpson, the prison minister, and David Lammy, the Justice Secretary, as well. But this is Britain, and no one ever carries the cane. No one ever takes the blame, do they? Huh?
I would definitely go to the top.
Yeah, and also the person who signed off on it. And maybe the people on the gates. They should spot, you know. Anyway, Sam, I take your point. The Real Porridge podcast, worth a listen, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, mate. I'm not blaming you, but you can see where I'm coming from. Louis Theroux, maker of good documentaries, I think, on the BBC, much loved character, does a podcast. Very excited to announce that his big celebrity interview upcoming was Bob Vylan. Or one half of that Bob Vylan dreadful outfit that sang their songs or rapped their raps at Glastonbury, featuring their famous death to the IDF chant, which got the BBC into huge trouble. The BBC should have pulled them off air. They were on live, but they didn't. They stayed on. They subsequently had to apologise. We made a terrible mistake. Bob Vylan, of course, is actually a sort of duo. There's two of them. And Bob Vylan actually is a down-home guy from the mean streets of Ipswich, whose real name is Pascal Robinson Foster. Wow, that's really kind of cutting edge, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway, he's an anti-Semite, and Louis Theroux thought it was a great idea to get him onto his podcast. Now, one would accept them from certain ilks, certain sections of society. An interview with this raging Jew hater, Pascal Robinson Foster, might incite some interest. But I would have thought that Louis Theroux might have had a bit more intelligence than to realise this is not acceptable. What you're doing here with this podcast, Louis, is you are making money from anti-Semitism. That is just not acceptable. You cannot do that. And guess what? He's paying the price because British Airways has removed its sponsorship of Louis Theroux's podcast, saying that this is not anything, that our sponsorship of the series has now been paused and the advert has been removed. We are grateful that this was brought to our attention, says British Airways. What on earth was this guy thinking? I mean, he's a bright guy, old Theroux, isn't he? Well, you can't do this. Let's talk to the Chief Executive of the Anti-Semitism Policy Trust, Danny Stone. Yeah, Danny, were you as surprised as I was that Louis Theroux thought this was a legitimate interview? Because what that does is it reduces Louis Theroux to the status of a man who is making money, cashing in on anti-Semitism. That can't be allowed, can it?
Well, I was surprised, I was shocked, and I was disappointed, because if you look at Theroux's previous documentaries, he has challenged anti-Semites. He has tried to explain to his audience what hate speech is, and yet in this interview, whether people believe he kind of whitewashed or soft-soaped Vylan, he didn't challenge him on some of the most disgusting hate speech that has been espoused. So in failing to challenge, he provided a platform, amplified some views without that kind of qualification, without that context, and didn't really give the audience a proper chance to make its own mind up.
On the OK, on the issue of Pascal Robinson Foster himself, crazy name, crazy guy, you know, he got away with it at Glastonbury. Death there to the IDF. That is an incitement to violence, quite clearly. It is anti-Semitic. It's a hate crime, if you ask me. He got away with that. The police sort of said, all right, well, we'll let it go. But here he is talking to Louis Theroux, repeating it, saying, I would say that again. I stand by what I say. How long is this guy going to be allowed to break our hate crime laws, Danny?
Well, look, if Theroux had done any research on this, and he may claim that he did, but certainly in the month before Glastonbury, Vylan had said death to every single IDF soldier out there. Last month he talked about F the Zionists, get out there and fight them, get out there and meet them in the street, get out there and let them know you don't stand by them. I mean, I'm a Zionist, so is he talking about me? Is that who is going to be?
I am too, by the way. Yeah, I love the way these people think that Zionism, or to call someone a Zionist, is an inherent insult. I'm proud to say I'm a Zionist, and so are you. So this feeds right into their innate prejudices, doesn't it?
I think so. He said, you know, we support the right to armed resistance. Yeah, he was a bit more coy about it on Theroux's podcast. So I think that the failure to challenge is disgraceful. And my challenge to Louis Theroux is, what are you going to do now? Right? So as you say, Vylan is going to go on and say what he's going to say. There are the police investigations. He's been dropped by his management. He isn't able to get into America and work, and people will make their own minds up about that. But for Theroux, he could invite me onto his podcast. You found a way to get me onto your program. It's easy enough. So my challenge to him is, what are you going to do? How are you going to educate people? And how are you now, given you didn't provide the challenge, going to ensure that there is a challenge in the episode that comes after?
I would also suggest to Louis Theroux, I see this as a blip in another otherwise impressive career. I think he's made a serious, profound mistake here. I think we need to ask Mr. Theroux exactly how much money, I know you've lost your British Airways sponsorship, but exactly how much money did you make, have you made out of this interview with this anti-Semite, this Jew hater? Let's sum up how much money you've made. Let's cost it out, and then perhaps you could give it to your organisation or the campaign against anti-Semitism or something like that, so he could make amends. What would you think about that?
I mean, look, we're always happy to take donations if that's what he wants to do. Of course, there'll be less money because, as you have pointed out, the British Airways has paused its sponsorship of his podcast. And I think that's right. I think there do need to be consequences for these kind of things. But I would point out, you said that this is a blip in a career. Yes, I agree to an extent. But Theroux posted on X an article from the London Review of Books, which I believe was an anti-Semitic article. And he hasn't deleted that, and I challenged him directly on that. Yeah. And so I do have concerns about some of his approach. And again, I hope he will reflect on that in his podcast going forward.
Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't seen that. I'll have a look at that. But what I guess now, in the light of events, slightly worries me about Mr. Theroux is he's a creature of the BBC. And the BBC, I think we can fairly say, to a large extent, is an anti-Semitic organisation. Its coverage of Gaza has been Jew-hating. It's been anti-Israel, anti-Jew. There's no doubt about that. What did you make, Danny, of the BBC's conclusion after investigation into Bob Vylan at Glastonbury? It said the corporation's complaints department looking into this, death to the IDF and all this, it said that taken in the round, this can be fairly characterised as anti-Semitic. Taken in the round, this can be fairly characterised as anti-Semitic. How about this was anti-Semitic? Why don't they just say that?
Well, look, my issue with the BBC was that it took so long to get to that point. You know, there was a kind of holding statement And then eventually, I think 48 hours later or so, there was the apology. And it took so long to get there. Now, for full transparency, our organisation is engaging with the BBC on its kind of understanding of anti-Semitism and what have you. So people should know that. I was pleased that they did come out and say what they said in the end. For me, when these things happen, it's about the protocol, right? So it's less about the content, more about the systems that are then in place, because I don't want this to happen again. I don't want further kind of hate speech to be, as I see it, to be broadcast, right? So what are they doing to stop that? And we are engaging with them on some of the measures to try and prevent that happening. So hopefully the situation will be improved. But I don't believe that the villain should be on the BBC, on Theroux's podcast. I think people should be shunning, as I've given you some of the language that they use. People should be shunning this group, is my take.
Absolutely. And maybe shun Louis Theroux if he does anything more like this. And good luck with teaching the BBC how to be not anti-Semitic. Good luck with teaching them how to divest its Jew hatred, because I hope you succeed, Danny. But boy, oh boy, have you got an uphill task. You really have. And I think brainwashing in our classrooms is one of the great issues of our time. Most teachers, you know, are left-wing. Lots of them are left-wing lunatics, teaching their kids stuff that they think's important, their ideology. So our schools are in danger of producing generations of people who've been indoctrinated into this kind of guardianist, be kind mentality that isn't very good for this nation. Let's talk to the chairman for the Campaign for Real Education, Chris McGovern. Hello, Chris.
Morning, Kevin. Morning.
So I just laid out what Migrant Help is doing, going into the classrooms to challenge the mindset of pupils. Think about that. What is that? That's a typical sinister sort of Soviet statement, isn't it? That is to teach or to brainwash kids into thinking that migrants coming into the country in their thousands illegally is a very good thing. Meanwhile, you'll be interested in this. I've done a few stories on my evening show, a couple of weeks ago actually. In Wales, there's a primary school where the teacher, their parents are furious because all of a sudden, unbeknownst to them, a representative of the local mosque was invited into this school to teach the little kids who are 5, 6, 7, 8 years old all about Islam, got them all to get down onto prayer mats to pray in the Muslim way. That triggered, Chris, loads of phone calls to my show. One parent, dad in Liverpool, saying they had a similar situation with their school. Their parents complained. What they were worried about was their little girls were dressed up in hijabs. They didn't know about it. They complained, and guess what happened then? The police came round to quiz them for potential hate crimes. Now, my question to you is, do you agree that this syndrome, if you like, the indoctrination of children, pupils, into a kind of left-wing, Muslim-friendly, be kind to migrants way of thinking? I mean, I'm not against necessarily that opinion, if you form that opinion in adulthood. I don't agree with it, but if you form that opinion in adulthood, that's your right. But these kids, I think their choice, their opinions are being able to form their opinions is being robbed to them by this early indoctrination by left-wing teachers. It is a source of concern, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right to sound the alarm, Kevin, but you're about 30 or 40 years too late, I'm afraid. It's been going on for decades. You know, I taught for 35 years, started teaching in the 70s. It's been going on for a very long time. The current generation of teachers themselves have been brainwashed. But look, if you want to know what's going on in our schools, Kevin, you go into the classroom, ask the white working class kids who are the ones at the top of the class, and they will tell you who's top of the class, who's successful. It's the migrant kids. Now, that's great. Our migrants have been a big success in terms of succeeding in classroom. Just as the Irish went to America, the Italians went to America, they built a new world. And migrants work very hard. And I've worked with these migrant kids, and they're incredibly well motivated. They're not a problem. They're a success story. If there's any money to support kids, it needs to go to the white working class. But in the teaching profession these days, it's all about decolonizing the curriculum. a sense of guilt that if you're white, you're somehow, or ethnic, Saxon, whatever you are, Irish, you're somehow inferior. You had too many privileges in the past. That makes you inferior these days. So you've got to help. They want to help the migrants. Look, nothing wrong with the migrants. They do incredibly well. They are a success story. But I would say to you, and any politician now should go and read the national curriculum for history, which I, by the way, was a party to writing, advised the government on it, and I objected to it. It doesn't require the teaching of a single specific event in British history. You're wearing a puppy, I'm wearing a puppy. We're coming up to November the 11th. But you don't have to teach World War I or World War II as part of the national curriculum. The MPs don't understand this. They don't read the curriculum. It's non-statutory. We've got a massive problem of brainwashing in our schools. We need to teach kids to be proud of our country and migrants to be proud of our country. Any money spare needs to go to the white working class, because they're the ones who are failing.
Yeah, a mum texted me on this show yesterday to say that her kids were coming home from school absolutely, cognizant of kind of early rebels in Caribbean culture and, sort of political campaigners in Colombia and God knows where. But did they know anything about the Battle of Waterloo or the Battle of Trafalgar or anything like that? They didn't know anything about our history. This syndrome, as you say, it's kind of, I don't mind, shall we say, a more universal form of education so that kids are cognizant of what happened in America, what happened in the Caribbean and all that, but not at the expense of British history. This is a cultural disaster, isn't it?
Yeah, and look, if you look again, go back to that national curriculum for history. It lists what's non-statutory, what you don't have to teach. That's the World Wars. You can if you want to. But there are certain things, Kevin, which you have to teach. On a compulsory list, for example, you have to teach either Islamic history, West African history, or Central American history.
But not British history.
No, but not British history. That's optional.
Repeat that again, Chris. Repeat that again. Statutory subjects that have to be taught in British schools are what?
You have to choose from either Islamic history, West African history, or Central American history. That is statutory, but
unbelievable.
There's nothing statutory about the Battle of Trafalgar or World War I.
That's unbelievable. That is unbelievable.
I wish MPs would go and read the document. It tells you what's non-statutory and tells you many times it's non-statutory to teach the great events of British history. You haven't got to teach Churchill, but there's statutory requirement to teach world history. Look, this is where we're going wrong. It's a serious problem. MPs don't wake up. They need to go and read the documents. They need to see what's going on in our schools. But as I say, ask the white working class who is doing well at school. And look, we pitied the poor immigrants, as Bob Dylan sang his song about. But look, they're doing well. They're a success story. Celebrate that. Let's help the kids who really need the help. Let's put the money where the help's really needed, the white working class. They are failing in all areas and we're soaring up trouble for the future.
So very pleased to be joined by the former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons, Nigel Evans. Welcome, Nigel.
Morning. How are you, Kevin?
I'm good. Well, look, first of all, I'm afraid we have to talk about this shocking event that happened on Monday night in Uxbridge to the west of London, which happens, by the way, Nigel, to be the area of Britain with the most intense asylum seeker population per capita in the entire country. This was a 49-year-old man, a guy called Wayne Broadhurst, doing nothing more than taking his little dog for a walk. 5 p.m. Monday night, he became the victim of a frenzied attack, which unfortunately, including me, some people have seen on a video posted online. It is a shocking thing to see. Wayne Broadhurst, 49-year-old dog walker, knifed to death, frenzied, stabbing time and time again. Also a 45-year-old man left with life-changing injuries, and a 14-year-old boy badly wounded but will apparently recover. Thank God for that small mercy. But the shocking element that did subsequently emerge last night was that a man had been arrested on suspicion of the murder, and that he is a 22-year-old Afghani asylum seeker who came here 5 years ago illegally on the back of a lorry, was subsequently granted leave to stay. Must stress, no charges yet. He's only been arrested on suspicion of this murder, but you can imagine, Nigel, this is a pretty incendiary incident. It follows last week the conviction for murder of an asylum seeker up in Walsall, Wolverhampton Crown Court. He stabbed a hotel worker, a young girl who worked at his asylum seeker hotel, 23 times with a screwdriver. He's gone to jail, quite rightly. But it is the fact that Chris Philp spoke in the House of Commons recently about the 730 asylum seekers around the country staying at asylum seeker hotels who've been charged with serious offences. There is a very sinister picture emerging here, and people are going to say this. This is the result of us, this nation, letting in thousands and thousands and thousands of young men of military age about whom we know nothing, and they hail from cultures, very different cultures, with very different attitudes, particularly to women and children, than we have. So what's happened in Uxbridge is going to create an intense debate in this country, don't you think?
Well, the debate's already going on, Kevin, and has been for some years. The fact is that you've just shown a figure of over 60,000 people who've entered the United Kingdom illegally since Keir Starmer came to power. It was the reason why Rishi Sunak went down to one of the biggest defeats we've ever seen in British electoral history. Quite frankly, the government has failed to get control or a grip on the floods of people that are coming in to the United Kingdom illegally. And we see all sorts of figures about how many people are being now arrested, who are the new figures coming up from the Home Office today to say that 8,000 people have been arrested, and yet very few of them end up being deported. And this is the real problem. I want to congratulate the police, by the way, on the way that they behaved so quickly in apprehending this man in the way that they did. They ended up having to taser him. But I'm afraid only after he had murdered one person and, as you say, had stabbed at least 2 other people. It is absolutely appalling. And this is happening on the streets of our country, and it only happened last Monday. I mean, it's quite appalling, and we need to see urgent action to stop the boats.
Yeah, I'm going to be talking to a couple of women who hail from very close to Uxbridge later on in the show. They live in the Hillingdon area. It is the borough of Hillingdon that takes the brunt of asylum seekers. They have more than anywhere else in the country, and this is essentially very close to where this is happening. And, you know, they are talking about safety on the streets. They have schools in their area where asylum seekers come every day and mill around outside, making the children feel very uncomfortable. Now, these scenes, Nigel, are unfolding all over the country every single day. We are beginning, more than beginning, we are suffering the effects of this crazed migrant policy that's been going on, all respect to you, but, you know, for 14 years of Tory government, now a year and a half of a Labour government. It's been going on for 15, 16 years. Successive governments have allowed this crisis to rise and rise and rise. It is now clearly out of control, and it is posing a threat to the safety of people on the streets. That's not acceptable.
Yeah, that's right. And looking at the pictures that you're showing there from Uxbridge on the 29th of October, you're seeing concerned residents who are really worried about the safety of their own children and the safety of themselves. As you say, a 49-year-old man murdered, 45-year-old man who's now got life-changing conditions due to this man going on a frenzy. These are not racists. These are people who want to see action to make sure that their communities are safe. And shoving a huge number of these illegal migrants into hotels or even into houses of multiple occupancy is not the answer. We need to see swift action taken to ensure that the boats are stopped. And the clear thing is, Kevin, and I've said this time and time again, is that if you enter the United Kingdom illegally on a small boat, that should be the crime. And the punishment should be that you will be deported within days and you will be banned from ever entering the United Kingdom again legally. Now, we already know one person under the ridiculous one-in, one-out scheme has already returned back to the United Kingdom. We've already got, reading in the papers today, that a couple of others that were deported have said that they see it as a bit of a game and they're going to try and get back in the UK. So this is what's happening now is just simply not the answer. When they are detected, they need to be DNA tested, they need fingerprints, photographed, and they need to be deported quickly. All this government did was do away with the Rwanda scheme before it was properly introduced. What has happened in the United States? Trump has got Rwanda multiplied by 10. He's got a number of countries whereby those countries are taking illegal immigrants into the United States, and it's working. The number of people entering the United States of America is now dropped dramatically. You've got to break the model that is being used to bring the people in. Instead of basically doing nothing. Otherwise, the figures are just going to increase again and again and again. And it's on average about 1,000 illegal immigrants coming into the United Kingdom every week. Listen, I've got to stress, the vast majority of these people are not going to go out and commit crime.
Yeah, it's worth pointing that out. Yeah, I agree with that. But what you've got to do, what Donald Trump has shown in terms of dealing with their migrant crisis, it was estimated that during Joe Biden's presidency, as many as 10 million illegal migrants were coming over the southern border every year. The official figure, I think, was about 3 million, but they think it was many more than that. What Donald Trump has done, effectively, is just shown resolve. They did the same in Australia. They just said no more. What we're going to do is, if you come here on an illegal boat, if you try to break in our country illegally, you will not be allowed to stay. Simple as that. What we do here, as you alluded to there, Nigel, is we've taken the political decision to say that the fact that these people all break our laws by breaking into our country illegally, we shelve that and say, well, because they've claimed asylum, they become legal. That's a political decision. It is not legal. And we need to change that decision. You're absolutely right. And of course, while Australia shows resolve, Donald Trump is showing resolve, what does our government do? It worries about the human rights of these migrants, and will continue to. We will not leave the European Convention on Human Rights because there is only one thing that Keir Starmer loves more than his wife, and that is human rights. So does his mate, Richard Hermer, the Attorney General. We are stuck in a swirling mass of human rights insanity, and as such we'll never solve this migrant crisis until we get a different government which is prepared to show resolve, right?
Yeah, and in the meantime, we'll probably see another 150 to 200,000 illegals coming into the United Kingdom over that period of time. Yeah, Australia, you've got to remember, they chose an island to the north of Australia called Nauru. And they made sure that any boats coming into Australia, that the people were processed on that island. They clearly don't have to put up with the European Convention of Human Rights in Australia. It was a Labour government in Australia that introduced that.
Tony Abbott, wasn't it?
Yeah, so no, it wasn't Tony Abbott. It was before Tony Abbott.
Oh, it was, wasn't it? Yeah, sorry.
It may have been Kim Beazley, but the reality is they were very strong and it stopped the boats. And we've got to do exactly the same. America has proven it. So we've got to get back talking to Rwanda. Let's talk to a number of other countries. But doing these little deals with France and Germany, what is it, 50 people we are sending to France, some of them coming back. And yet there's thousands coming in every week. This is a drop in the ocean.
It's pathetic, Nigel. The one-in, one-out scheme is a national sick joke. It really is. Quickly, let's talk about Hadush Kubatu, our favourite migrant sex offender, a child sex abuser. He was, of course, the Epping asylum seeker who was done for sexual assault on 2 local women, one only 14 years old, sent to Chelmsford jail for a year. let out accidentally by mistake farcically last Friday, recaptured on Sunday. Well, who'd have thought it? They've actually managed to deport him. Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, boasting today about how she pulled every lever to get him out of the country and back to Ethiopia. So I suppose that is a good story, but I think people will say, well, hang on, if you could do it so efficiently, so quickly, for this one guy, if you like, this celebrity asylum seeker sex offender, why can't you do it for all the others? Why can't you do it for all the other asylum seekers who are in jail, who broke our laws? You know, well done, Shabana, but I think, you know, it's essentially, isn't it, one down, about 50,000 to go.
Yeah, he is, as you say, a trophy for this government, and they'll play it very big, I'm sure, today in Prime Minister's questions later on at Westminster. But the bleeding reality was that he was released mistakenly. And I've read in the papers that there are several others that have also been released at the same time. So it's not just him. There are others there as well. And yeah, the fact is that he has now eventually been sent back to Ethiopia, which is where he should have been sent ages ago, instead of probably a huge cost to the British taxpayer in trying to track this man down. The other thing which begs the question, and David Lammy no doubt will be preening himself today in front of as many cameras as he possibly can, but I keep reading how many people in the Home Office are earning eye-watering salaries, including bonuses, which are the equivalent of what the average salary is for most people in the United Kingdom, for basically failing in doing their jobs. They shouldn't be earning this money in the first place at the level that they are. A lot of them are earning way more than Yvette Cooper. So it's bonkers, and yet it is rewarding failure time and time again. And if Rachel Reeves is looking where she can save some money, then she should start to look at how many civil servants are earning over £165,000, which is roughly what the Prime Minister...
Disgusting, Nigel. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. Just quickly read Shabana Mahmood's tweet. I have pulled every lever to deport Mr Kibatu and remove him off British soil. I think she means from British soil, but never mind. I am pleased to confirm this vile Czech child sex offender has been deported. Our streets are safer because of it. If you come to this country and commit crimes, we will remove you. No, you won't, Shabana. No, you won't. That's not true. We have millions, or not millions, that's an exaggeration. We have probably thousands, certainly hundreds of asylum seekers who break our laws, go to jail, and we do not deport them. So that isn't true. Before you go quickly, I must just get you on this, Nigel, moving on, as it were. Ed Miliband, crazy Ed Miliband, our mad net zero secretary, has finally admitted that wind power, the wind power that he's so in love with, has turned out to be rather less reliable than he expected. How much longer do you think we're going to have to put up with this man's climate change insanity, which is in danger of completely wrecking this country's economy? He's off to Brazil next month with Keir Starmer and 450 other British delegates, flying 9,000 miles, destroying the planet by carbon emissions, to talk about saving the planet when they get to Brazil. The hypocrisy is off the scale. But this guy, Miliband, he's a danger to this country.
If the Labour government are wondering why it is that looking at today's opinion polls, which show them now just 1 point ahead, that's the Labour Party, yeah, 1 point ahead of the Greens, well behind reform, they need look no further than Ed Miliband for one of the reasons why this is happening. And we all know that they're hugely expensive, these wind turbines, in the first place. Also, if it is too windy, they have to switch them off, but still pay people for not producing the energy so that they're being subsidised, and it's costing billions. It is absolutely insane, and this government has been absolutely focused on increasing the amount of renewables when they should have been looking at a far wider range of policies as far as energy is concerned. And my goodness me, aren't we sitting on huge reserves of oil in this country, which they turned their back on at the same time as importing it from other countries? It's absolutely a bonkers.
Not forgetting, Nigel, totally bonkers. Not forgetting, we're sitting on Europe's, one of the world's largest reserves of shale gas, which we could frack up when Barack Obama, of all people, allowed America to drill for shale gas, to frack. It provided America with something like 125 years worth of very cheap energy. Although we've got 50 years worth, apparently, underneath Lincolnshire alone, we're not allowed to drill for that for ecological reasons, and because apparently it will cause earthquakes on the Blackpool Prom, which it won't. We are trapped in a swirling mass of Ed Miliband's madness, and it's very dangerous.
Yeah, well, the insane energy policy of the government means that British industry is way less competitive than other industries throughout the world. We are in a global economy. We have to compete with other industries, with other countries. And the fact is that in the United Kingdom, we now have some of the highest energy prices in the world. And it's all due to this government's policy of focusing on renewables, which have finally, it's entered the brain of Ed Miliband that they're not as efficient and effective as he originally told all of us.
You say the brain of Ed Miliband. I mean, do you have any evidence that he's actually got one?
I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, Kevin.
All right. Well, let's be kind to Ed for just once in our lives. On and on this catastrophe goes. It's just getting frightening. Well, let's discuss some of these horrors, if I can put it that way, with former government advisor James Price. Good morning, James.
Speaking of frightening, here's James Price.
Yes,
Great intro. Thanks, Nate.
Speaking of horrific, no, seriously, I mean, we'll get to Rachel in a minute. I want to talk about her 2p tax rise, which is a disgrace. It also turns out she's a lawbreaker. That will be swept under the carpet like these things always are in Westminster. But I do think the priority in terms of today's news agenda is this increasing, I call it a sense of dread spreading through the country, and it concerns all these thousands and thousands and thousands of undocumented foreigners about whom we have this strange policy. They break into our country illegally, they come across on small boats. We're discovering now, by the way, a lot of them are still coming on the back of lorries like they used to. So they break into our country illegally. We don't know anything about it. We have this strange policy of saying, oh, welcome, here's a 4-star hotel, here's £50 a week benefit, free doctors, dentists, lawyers, etc., etc. We've got this strange policy of making this place the land of plenty, the promised land for people who break into it illegally. And I think we're just beginning to realise the terrifying consequences of this. We're looking at now at pictures of this asylum seeker in Walsall, who last week was convicted of the murder of a girl who worked behind the reception at his asylum seeker hotel. He followed her out and stabbed her 23 times with a screwdriver, stabbed her to death, was then filmed whooping and dancing with excitement. Of course, we had this terrible murder on Monday. This poor guy, Wayne Broadhurst, just walking his little dog down a residential side street in a suburbia, really, west of London, Uxbridge. Afghan national, man who broke into this country illegally on the back of a lorry in 2020, was subsequently given asylum, granted leave to stay. Name of Safi Darwood. He's now been charged with murder and attempted murder following that triple stabbing. So we have to be slightly careful there. But another asylum seeker we learned today, or whose application failed, got into such a temper. This was in Derby. He walked into a branch of Lloyd's Bank and in a temper just stabbed to death a random stranger, a poor guy, a father of three, shouting F the British, racist white bastards, and so on and so forth. And also another case has cropped up in the last couple. These are just coming thick and fast. Food delivery asylum seeker guy, migrant guy in Maidstone in Kent, sexually assaulted two of his customers when they answered the front door. And so on and on it goes. And I think that one thing about this is, when is the Prime Minister going to say a damn word about this? When is he going to say anything about that murder on Monday, about which the nation is traumatised? There's no doubt about it. That murder had a traumatic effect on the nation. No word from the Prime Minister. No word about what he's going to do about this. No word about setting up a reasonable deterrence to try and stop this ongoing invasion of people, too many of whom, not all of course, too many of whom come here and abuse our hospitality by committing the most heinous crimes. When are we going to get something from this government, James?
I'm not sure we are, my friend. I mean, it's almost too depressing to get out of bed when you put it all like this. I hope that people who are listening do still manage to find the fortitude to swing their legs out and get up this morning. It's just awful. And I'm a bit worried that with the speed of this and the frequency of these, as you say, that we're going to become desensitized to it rather than becoming angry about it. You know, we've had this for a long time now. That ghastly, I mean, the song is fine, but the ghastly notion from that Oasis song, "Don't look back in anger." And when the Manchester arena was attacked by an Islamist terrorist who blew up a backpack full of things and killed a load of kids, and the security guard said, well, he did look a bit dodgy, but I didn't want to confront him because I didn't want to be racist. And then we went around saying, oh, you can't look back in anger. And we hear that again and again. It is high time that we look back in anger and we look forward in anger, because otherwise we're not going to survive. I walk my dog around suburban London a couple of times a day. My wife does the same thing. Am I to expect that this is what we now have in London? That part and parcel, as I walk down the street, I might bump into someone I know, might stop for a coffee, and might get stabbed to death by a bloke who broke into the country illegally and was still given indefinite leave to remain, and then it's declared to be an evil, abhorrent thing that we should ever dare to suggest taking away indefinite leave to remain from that person. Enough is enough, as you say. We cannot get desensitized to this. We cannot get desensitized specifically to the fact that this would be really, really simple in some ways to solve. You change the legal regime, you change the legal framework, you send special forces in concert with French special forces to capture or ideally kill the people who run the gangs that send the small boats over, and we re-establish a deterrent like Rwanda, and re-establish the law that Labour got rid of, by the way, that said if you enter this country illegally, you'll never be allowed to stay. And we don't give a monkey's what horrible country you come from. You're going to go back there or you're going to go somewhere else. See, it's actually not that complicated. You can work out the details. You and I have fixed it right now, and lots of people wouldn't have been murdered in cold blood if you and I were in charge right now.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about our borders. What we need, obviously, a proper deterrence to deter all of these illegal foreigners crossing the channel and breaking into our country, because it's so tempting to them. Obviously, they're going, as the French keep saying, what do you expect us to do? You're offering them the earth. You're offering them the world. You offer them £50 a week benefits. You offer them free 4-star hotels. You offer them free food, free dentists, free doctors, free lawyers, free driving lessons, free video consoles, free trips to the zoo, free trampoline lessons. These are not deterrents. These are enticements. But what is the deterrent that the government's come up with? It is the one-in, one-out scheme, which I'm told has cost us £100 million so far. I think the score was that we got 42 out and 18 had come the other way. It's now 41 out, because one of the ones that we got out got to France on the one-in, one-out scheme, so don't fancy this, made his way back to Calais and then returned on an illegal boat. You couldn't make this stuff up. He, outrageously, is still in the country, and we are hearing now that even the handful of migrants that we... I know. Yeah, if he didn't laugh, he'd cry.
Yeah, exactly.
But we're hearing now, James, that even the handful of migrants that we, at great, enormous expense, that we have got back to France on the one in, one out scheme, are all saying we want to go back to Britain because the French won't give us houses. You know, what is this one in, one out? What is it supposed to be? It is actually supposed to be a deterrent. They launched the scheme in early August. And it has failed since then. Well, we've got 42 out, or 41 now, and they've sent 18 back to us. Since then, it has failed to deter more than 11,000 illegal migrants from crossing the Channel unlawfully. So it's not a deterrent, it's just an expensive waste of comically useless time, isn't it?
One quick question. The guy who came back again, have we got to accept a second person in from France, right? So the same guy yo-yoing, and is he still in, one out, or does he get his own separate scheme? And I'm no PhD tier mathematician, but if the objective is to reduce the number of illegal people in this country, that one in, one out, even if it were one in, one out, doesn't actually reduce the numbers at all, doesn't do anything. This is the lunacy of this, right? Yeah. We want massive net reduction in the number of people who are here, both legally and especially illegally, because at least then we know nothing about these people, and it's much harder to do. And the insane other story that, as I think trumped all the rest of it, that this guy, Hadush Kabatu, who started all of the epping protests in the first place, who was accidentally released from prison, said, I think in an interview yesterday, he's like, no, I'm meant to stay here. Please keep me, lock me up again. And they still sent him on his way.
But did
and
you
the
hear
guy
this
had
new
40
element?
hours wandering around London on a tourist trip.
But have you heard the new element of this? He gave an interview to Sky News. It beggars belief. So, as you quite rightly say, there's this, you know, it's like a sitcom or something. They release him from Chelmsford Jail last Friday. He keeps going back to the gatehouse and going, you sure about this? I don't think... no, you've been released. So he goes back a second time. No, you're fine, off you go. He goes back 5 times. On the 5th time, an angry guard said, look, for God's sake, the station is just down there on the left. Will you just go? So he finally goes. He gets a train down to London. God knows where he spent the night. Saturday morning, he goes to a police station in London, and he says, I'm Hadush Kabatu, Britain's most famous asylum seeker sex offender. I think they may have released me from jail accidentally. I'm handing myself in. Oh, get out of here. Get out. So they just sent him on his way again. It's unbelievable.
If you weren't guilty of really, really, very, truly, seriously horrendous crimes, as you say, it would be like a sitcom. It is almost funny how useless we are as a country at dealing with these things. Yes. Absolutely bonkers. The one bit that gets me is that he has now been deported, and I think it was reported he was given about 500
quid because he threatened to kick up a storm if they didn't. So we go, oh yeah, all right, there is some money.
Right, but this shows then, so he didn't actually serve the sentence that he was meant to serve. Obviously, he never would have done that. He didn't even serve the half of the sentence he was given that you might expect.
He did about a month. He did about a month. Yeah.
An illegal criminal who sexually assaulted a child and a woman. But this does show, why don't we just go to these people and say, listen, right, fair play, you managed to get here. Here's £1,000, right, and a plane ticket. Now, F off, and if you ever come again, we're going to shoot you. I may be too generous giving them £1,000, but it seems to work in the case of this guy that he's just gone. And actually, these people don't seem to have a pretty good grasp on these things. Give them a few quid and say, if you ever come back, you get shot. I think that would be a pretty reasonable suggestion.
I think the shooting thing might be a sort of rather draconian, but I agree with the spirit of what you're saying.
If you break into a military site, or if you break into various other government installations, you should face these things. Any other country in the world should do. In Britain, we don't seem to. So I think there needs to be a strong level of deterrence.
Yeah, I think what people are asking, Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, boasting about how I've pulled every lever to get this guy out of the country really quickly, aren't I? Great. Well, first of all, we've got a returns deal with Ethiopia, so it's not that difficult. If Hadush Kabatu came from a country without a returns deal, he would still be here, I'll guarantee you that, surrounded by human rights lawyers. But she's boasting about that. Oh, I moved so fast on this. So people are saying, hang on a second, we've got all these other asylum seeker rejects all over the country who never seem to leave. they just appeal again, keep appealing until they succeed. And also we've got more than 10,000 foreigners in our prisons, our chronically overcrowded prisoners. If you're so great and so brilliant at getting people out of the country, deporting them, pulling every lever as you boasted, why can't you do it with these 10,000 foreign lawbreakers currently in our jails? Free up some cell space, then you wouldn't have to keep releasing murderers and rapists early, would you? How about that?
Quite. Or what about the 1.9 million people who live in the United Kingdom who are foreigners who live on benefits, right? That dwarfs the 10,000 prisoners. This is lunacy. We cannot take in all the people in the world who have had a difficult life or who had difficult conditions and all the rest of it, right? Global capitalism is pulling millions and millions and millions of people out of extreme poverty all the time, and that's a wonderful thing. The world is unrecognizable than it has been for a long time. That will keep on going and we should encourage that. But in the meantime, we cannot take people, even with legitimate concerns. There are no housing, there's no school spaces. Clearly, there are massive, massive cultural incompatibilities that politicians are too scared to talk about. And Katie Lamb, the Conservative MP, should be massively praised for talking about how we should end up with a country that is largely a culturally coherent group of people. Nothing about race in there, nothing else. But we should definitely be having those kind of conversations as well. And I dare say that someone going and killing a random stranger with a screwdriver, not terribly culturally compatible. Something has to be done about this. It's a choice. We're choosing not to.
Exactly right. And just before we go to break, there's Rachel Reeves, front page of the Daily Mail, illegally rented out her own family home. This is what they always call euphemistically in Westminster an oversight. So she's been caught by the Mail. She's got this nice house in Dulwich, nice area of South London, which she's rented out for more than 70 grand a year, 3 grand a month, something like that. But she apparently makes 70 grand a year out of it. And in the borough of Dulwich, you're supposed to register as a landlord in order to prove that it's fireproof and safe and all that. She didn't do that. So she's broken the law. She's been found out. She immediately wrote to Starmer saying, oh, this has been well, you've done the honourable and decent, honest thing, as I know you always would, and I believe that your apology is enough, and we draw a line under the matter right here and now, as they do in Westminster. But, you know, this is a guy, Prime Minister, who, as he was coming to power, or while he was attacking the Tories, piously announced lawmakers cannot be lawbreakers. If there was any integrity in this government at all, if Rachel Reeves had any integrity, if Starmer had any integrity, she'd have to walk the plank, wouldn't she?
Yeah, 100%. She should. But I mean, politically, I'm almost glad that she won't go, because however useless she is and however much she's lied on her CV, however damaging her last budget was, however damaging her next budget's going to be, she's still got more private sector experience than anybody else in that party, and I'm pretty terrified who else they get to come in. You talk about 2p on the pound. I think that Rachel Reeves probably thinks that it's only 2p per person, rather than that being reflective of the broader increase that it is. If only Boris Johnson had thought, I'll just write a letter saying I draw a line under the matter of eating a bit of cake in Downing Street. We could have avoided a lot of pain, right? But these people are so damn holier than thou. You live by these ridiculous regulations that shouldn't exist. You should fall on your sword about it. Yeah. And we've had a corruption minister get done for corruption, a homelessness minister get done for making people homeless, transport minister done for fraud. We've had the housing secretary get done for having too many houses. It's absolutely ludicrous that these people dare look themselves in the mirror and think that they're the good guys. It's disgraceful.
Exactly right. Not very socialist either, is it? Making
no,
all your money. Yeah,
damn hypocrites every time, right?
Yeah.
Every time. What is it Margaret Thatcher said? The problem with socialism is eventually you run out of other people's money.
Exactly right. I'm going to talk now to a regular, one of our favourite guests, but a man who has experienced this scourge of petty crime, a man who used to be a crime buster himself. He is former Met Police Detective Peter Bleksley. Peter, tell us what happened to you.
A few months ago, I pulled into Waterloo railway station, having had quite a long journey, and being a foolish smoker, I was desperate to light one up. So I came out the front of Waterloo station, had a cigarette, and then looked around for a bin, and I could not find one anywhere. So what I did was I popped my cigarette end down the drain. And someone out of nowhere appeared in front of me with his body-worn video running and his uniform and his machine, and he issued me a £100 on-the-spot fine. My wife was livid when I got home, and let's face it, I'd not been best pleased, so I now carry a pouch with me everywhere I go, into which I can put my cigarette ends if I don't find a bin.
What was when this guy with the photo cam and all that fine? What was your crime? What did he say? What offence was it you're supposed to have committed there?
It apparently is an offence to dispose of a cigarette butt down a drain. Now, all right, I kind of see where he's coming from, but the way
I don't.
but I mean the way he'd hidden himself. You know, I wasn't trying to make the environment messier or dirtier. I thought a bin at the drain, in the absence of a bin, was the next best option. But he just was there in front of me in the blink of an eye, and with relish, he started typing my details out. I mean, quite obviously, I kept my hands in my pockets, but I was not very happy with him. Let's say that. I didn't give him a hard time. He worked for Lambeth Council, and what these people are doing, all these other cases you mentioned, they're just revenue collecting.
Revenue raising, revenue raising.
They are preying on decent, law-abiding members of society who work, pay their taxes, contribute, and they are alienating them. This is the bigger issue. They are alienating us. They are seen as the establishment. They're uniformed. They are. And it creates this greater divide between us and the establishment. And that leads to a low-trust society. And in low-trust societies, very bad things happen.
Just before you go, Peter, you know, as a former copper, I mean, are these people on the spot fines? They come up to you, in effect, they accuse you, they prosecute you, convict you, and fine you in the blink of an eye. Is that legal? Surely you should have the right to appeal.
Yes, I suspect so, and they are empowered to do it. In fact, the lady who poured the dregs of her coffee down the drain did get her fine set aside. And this lady, without having the poo bag, is ridiculous, but it just goes to show how little these law enforcement people know about society. To any police officer out there, or somebody thinking of joining the police, dog walkers are lovely. They adore their pets. They're caring people. They speak to one another. They are the eyes and ears of a community. And many, many crimes have been solved by dogs finding murder corpses, weapons, guns, all manner of things. Keep the dog walkers on side. They're wonderful and they're important.
Absolutely. And lastly, I mean, what is the legality of it? I mean, can a council just say, right, you are now working for us and you can go out fining people? I mean, have I got the right to say, who the hell are you? You know, you just work for the council. If you, in your days as a copper, come up to me and say, hello, I'm a Metropolitan Police detective, I respect you and I respect your right to enforce the law. Do I have to respect the right of some council jobs worth to enforce the law?
Well, if you refuse to give your details or you walk away ignoring that enforcement officer, I strongly suspect they will get on the radio and you will soon be flagged down
by a cop,
quite possibly by a rather unhappy police officer.
He's got better things to do. Yeah, exactly right. Well, Peter, I'm sorry about your brush with the law there, but, you know, some of us go wrong sometimes, don't we, as you well know. Let's go over to author, historian and literary editor of The Spectator World, where it writes very entertaining pieces in The Spectator magazine about the royal family. Alexander Larman. Welcome, Alexander.
Morning, Kevin. How's it going your way?
OK, not going too well Mr. Mountbatten Windsor's way, is it?
Oh, I mean, imagine waking up and being him today. I mean, just imagine it. It's unthinkable, actually.
Yeah, exactly right. Now, This is pretty unprecedented. I mean, the last sort of great fall from grace, you can talk about Prince Harry if you want, but the last great fall from royal grace was, of course, King Edward VIII, who relinquished the crown for his love of Wallis Simpson. That was, you know, a reduction in status on an epic scale, but not on the scale of this. This has never happened before. Now, what I want to ask you, Andrew, Alexandra, Freudian slip there, is this. Why was it, you're a bit of an expert in this field, why was it that 2 weeks or so ago when the King or Andrew announced, you know, I'm so full of honour and sense of duty, I'm going to not use my titles anymore, Duke of York, Earl of Inverness and Baron Kililea. I won't use those anymore. We said, well, why isn't it? And then we find out, well, he's still got those titles, but he just won't use them. We go, well, why? Well, can't we literally strip him of those titles? Oh, well, that would take an act of Parliament. King doesn't want to bother Parliament. We sort of go, well, I'm not sure if that's satisfactory, but OK. 2 weeks later, suddenly we learned the King can strip him of these titles. And the other thing we were told, well, we can never remove from him the right to call himself a prince because that is his birthright. Suddenly, we learn we can strip him of the right to call himself prince. I mean, I think the King's finally done the right thing. Wrong thing. He's finally done the right thing, but he seems to be making up the rules as he goes along.
Yes, Kevin. I mean, what I'd say is that it's a very bizarre situation because constitutionally we are in completely unknown territory at the moment, and we simply do not know precisely. Because, as you say, we were being told that it was required an act of Parliament. The Lib Dems were saying that they were going to move a motion to have him stripped of his titles, but you were talking about potentially a year this was going to take. And so the fact that the King can just say last night, right, he's been stripped of all of his titles, he can't use them, he's not a prince anymore, blah, blah, blah. On the one hand, yep, good, decisive action. But on the other hand, you think, but constitutionally, can you do that? Because obviously, what you have to remember is that the King is a constitutional monarch, which means that he governs with the assent of Parliament. He can't just announce, right, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And so actually, a lot of people will be saying this morning, it was good theatrics last night. It was very dramatic in terms of what happened. But has he actually been stripped of all these things, or would it require there to be more parliamentary intervention? And I think for one of the things that we don't know at the moment, Charles doesn't know what he's doing because this is such unprecedented territory. I mean, even Edward VIII, he wasn't stripped of his titles. He was just given a new one and became Duke of Windsor. But given that the man is a Nazi sympathiser who was photographed with Hitler, he was still, I mean, the worst that happened to him was he was sent off to the Bahamas in World War II because it was thought he was a bit too pally with the Nazis. So we look at Andrew and we see the level of disgrace. I mean, there is nothing to compare to this in recent times, nothing of the 20th century, probably nothing of the 19th century. So we are talking something that nobody living is going to have any experience of anything like this whatsoever. And what I also think is that it's a gift for the Republican movement, because what we lack in this country is any kind of organised, well put together Republican movement. We've got a few, stragglers here and there, led by Graham Smith and his Republic movement. But the royal family continue to be popular in this country. They continue to be a symbol, a figurehead. But this has caused such damage to their reputation. But I think that what the King is now hoping is that this has lanced the boil and that the rot can finally stop. Of course, what we're going to see over the next few days is there more to come? And I think that the Epstein files are like a very nasty present that keeps on giving. And there's every chance there will be more that emerges. And of course, what I've been asking is, does the King know something that we don't? Because a lot of his actions seem to be taken quite unilaterally, and you keep thinking, is something else about to come out that's going to be even more embarrassing and even more damaging?
I think you're right there, Alexander. I think that's what's going on. I think the King does know. I think the royal family do know that there's more to come. Apparently, the ghostwriter of Virginia Giuffre, God rest her soul's posthumous book, Nobody's Girl, said that they have all sorts of information that will get Andrew into serious trouble. And at the root of this, I mean, obviously, is Andrew and Fergie's continued relationship with a convicted paedophile. They didn't care that Jeffrey Epstein was a convicted paedophile. The only thing they cared about him was that he had a lot of money, billions of dollars, and therein lies their problem. But Andrew and Fergie lied about cutting off communications with this guy, and nobody believes Andrew when he said, "Oh, I didn't do that. I never met Virginia Roberts as she was then. I did not sexually abuse her on 3 continents." Now, one of the places where he is accused of sexually abusing Virginia Giuffre. She was only Virginia Roberts as she was then. There it is, picture of her in Ghislaine Maxwell's London home. She was only 17 then. Andrew says he never met her. Basically, nobody believes that. No. Nobody believes that. And quite clearly, with this statement yesterday that the King released, or Buckingham Palace released, they made it very clear that the royal family, like the rest of us, do not believe a word he says. They say these censures are deemed necessary, notwithstanding the fact that he continues to deny the allegations against him. Their Majesties wish to make it clear that their thoughts and utmost sympathies have been and will remain with the victims and survivors of any and all forms of abuse. What they really mean there is the victims of sexual abuse. So the royal family, like the rest of us, do not believe this guy. So put the case that he did sexually abuse, basically raped this girl while he was in London. That is an offence in this country. The police, I think, must investigate. This nightmare for Andrew is not over, is it?
No, it's not. And I think that if I was Andrew, I would almost be welcoming the idea of the police knocking on the door, because ultimately that's how this has to play out, isn't it? It has to be that if he was to be arrested, if he was to be the first member of a royal family ever to be put on trial in a criminal court, then I'm not sure what a jury of his peers would be anymore. But if that happened and he was to be acquitted, then it would be his name would be restored, and then actually you could see that there would be a path back for him. If he was, however, convicted and he went to prison, well, that would go very, very badly indeed. And if I was him, I'd be thinking, well, okay, let's see, because that is the only way now. That's the only path where there's any kind of comeback for him, because otherwise it's just a lifetime of obscurity in some little cottage on the Sandringham estate.
Well, whether or not he'd be acquitted, I would have my personal doubts. I think a lot of people will have doubts about that. One quick last question, Alexander. We've got to go. Great to talk to you. If this guy, Andrew, Mr. Mountbatten Windsor, does have this mysterious source of wealth that we keep hearing about, that may be another reason he could be in criminal trouble. Why is the King going to give him a free house on Sandringham Estate?
Because he wants to shut him up, is the only reason I can imagine.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, because we were being told earlier in the week that he was negotiating to move out of Royal Lodge and go to Frogmore Cottage and stuff like that. And clearly the negotiations didn't go very well. So he's been told that, right, you're not going to have a plush little place that's been refurbished at the cost of taxpayer-funded millions on the Windsor estate. You're going to go to some small bit of Sandringham. But a lot of people, myself included, would be thinking, you're not owed anything. Just go to the Middle East, go and live in some potentate's back room or something like that. Stop bothering the world.
Yeah, I mean, the royal family, King, we are told, are worried about if they don't sort of look after Andrew, that he might write a sort of tell-all book to make some money and humiliate his family. But then again, they've cast Fergie out into the barren ether. They've told her she can fend for herself, make her own arrangements. So she's now a clear and present danger. So I'm not sure about this fear of a book angle. Do you think, last question, Alexander, do you think that the King, when he plonks Andrew, his brother, into Sandringham, do you think he'll put travel restrictions on him and say, look, we don't want to see your face again. I don't want you going to the local pub. Actually, he doesn't drink, to be fair, but you know what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, I was just thinking about the idea of his doing a book, and I was thinking, well, he would call it My Struggle, but that title would have been taken.
Yeah.
So I think that you can't stop him from going anywhere. I mean, unless you take away his passport, you can't forbid him from travelling. I mean, he probably wants to go to the Middle East again and tap up some people who've given him money in the past. But I don't think the story's over, Kevin. I think there's more to come, and I think it's going to be a really unedifying and unpleasant next few weeks for everyone involved in the royal family, but most of all for Andy Windsor, as we can now call him.
Andy Windsor, indeed. Randy Andy Windsor.